we want to be a bridge between the two worlds. Yeah, and that's where we kind of see us sitting in that, you've got this fiat world where it's, dark and stormy and, whatever's going to happen with the financial systems is going to happen. And then you've got this bright, sunny, beautiful Bitcoin standard world. And, how do we get people from one side to the other? How do we get people to see the other side? And, that's the bridge there.
Hello, I am Cody Ellingham, and this is the Transformation of Value podcast. In this episode, I speak with Ian from the Victorian Bitcoin Technology Club, a not-for-profit incorporated club supporting Bitcoin education and grassroots Bitcoin adoption in the state of Victoria, Australia. We discuss the background to starting the club, how it acts as a backwards compatible organisation for interfacing with the legacy world while also embracing Bitcoin principles. We also discuss the club's mission, their plans for the future, and how they are trying to operate on a Bitcoin standard. If you would like to support this show and my work, please consider tipping some sats to the show's wallet. You can use a Podcasting 2.0 app such as Fountain or Breez, and you can leave a comment letting me know what you think. Otherwise, pass this episode on to a friend who you think may enjoy it. Every bit of support helps, and I do appreciate it. If you have any questions or feedback, please reach out. My emails are always open, hello@thetransformationofvalue.com. Otherwise, on to the show. How have you been, Ian?
Yeah, good. It's been busy. It's been busy times. Yeah, just trying to squeeze everything in, to be honest. Yeah, kind of the fiat mining has got in the way of a lot of fun Bitcoin activity, unfortunately.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's how it goes. That's how it goes, really. But
yeah. Well, you have been busy though. You shared, I believe it was actually on the halving recently, the Victoria Bitcoin Technology Club, which I know yourself and a few others have started over in Victoria in Australia. And I'm keen to talk about that today because it's pretty cool that you guys have gone and created this organization and gone through the process of developing that. So tell me a bit more about that, Ian.
So I think it was about August last year, 5 or 6 of us got together and went there's a lot of meetups happening in Victoria. We had a really cool vibe down on the Mornington Peninsula where we started out with 3 of us meeting up at a pub to have a few pints, and was like, we should advertise this and kind of do something a bit bigger. And then all of a sudden we had 20 people turn up to a meetup in Mornington, and we were a little bit blown away by it. And yeah, that then kind of got that going for a few months, where the second Monday of every month we'd organise a bit of an educational get-together, we'd do a presentation on something. And yeah, we'd be getting like 20, 25 people there. We were getting people coming down from the city for it. And it was just growing and getting really popular. That, I think, I don't know if it encouraged or spurred a few other kind of little areas to kind of kick off as well, or if they just, got going independently. But there was a meetup down on the other side of Port Phillip Bay. So to catch a ferry across, not very far at all, but to drive there, it's probably a 2-hour drive. And that was, that they started going as well. And they were getting about 20, 25 people to their meetup. Then there was another couple, a regular one in the city at, one of the bars in the city that would accept Bitcoin for payment. And we were getting all these, kind of different meetups start up around the place. And a few of us kind of got together with that and went like, all of these meetups are happening on their own. There's individuals like, myself and Kieran, who you've spoken to, who are putting the effort in to, kind of get these happening. Like we were paying costs out and things like that. It would be really good if we had some type of formal association to support all of these. It's not something that we wanted to take over or centralize or anything like that, but some way that we could capture the value from all of these individual meetups and share the knowledge and share the information. Because one of the challenges that we've faced here in Melbourne or Victoria is it's quite a big area in terms of where everyone's spread out. As I said, like to get from the Surf Coast to the peninsula is a 2-hour drive. And people are just not going to do that for a Bitcoin meetup, on a regular basis. For us to get up to the city, it was an hour drive, So you do it every now and again, but it was hard to get, people to all of these different ones. So in October last year, the 5 or 6 of us got together and we formed the Victorian Bitcoin Technology Club. So it was a formal association, incorporated association. And we did that for a couple of reasons. It was one, we decided, it'd be really good to get something all across Victoria that everyone could buy into, everyone could kind of collaborate with and share information. But then if we were to look at, what all of these little meetups were trying to do, everyone was about, kind of education and community. And so, how could we support them in that? So by having, the kind of central entity to help support all of these places. So it wasn't just individuals doing it and on their own, and they got a little bit of assistance with it. October last year we started it up. We got going kind of towards the end of last year, had a couple of meetings, figured out what we wanted to do, figured out what the official purpose of the organization was going to be. When you form an association, it has to have a purpose, has to have a set of rules. So we kind of decided on what those rules were going to be, what our principles were going to be, and we officially launched on the Bitcoin halving back in April. So we had our first event, which was here on the peninsula, and had a halving party, and it was an awesome night.
I understand you guys did like a live feed with the guys in New Zealand as well. Is that right? There was like a
So
I don't know.
By all accounts, there was a bit of a hitch there.
Oh, no.
I think someone got a little bit too excited about the cake cutting, and over the live feed, someone went a little bit early and cut the cake a little bit too early. But obviously, I know the Bit Kiwi guys there in Wellington, and met up with them a couple of times, and they were doing their event in Wellington. It was like, oh, we're going to be at the same time. Like, we should set up a live feed and cross over and kind of share some hellos and things like that. So we set the laptop up and saw them at the Falcon Brewer there in Wellington, and showed them our event. And
so are you saying there was a premature halving?
There's a premature halving. We had this idea that for the halving party, we'd get a Bitcoin cake and ceremonially cut it in half. And so they did one as well, and no, I think it went really well. It was a nice touch to the evening to, especially kind of that close to Anzac Day as well. Kind of to go, let's make sure we get some Anzac spirit here, and it's something we're really keen to do is collaborate with them going forward as well, just to see, kind of keep in touch with what they're up to, and as well as, we are the Victorian Bitcoin Technology Club. We made a deliberate decision there not to go Australia wide or anything like that. It was like, let's try and do something, controllable. But it doesn't mean that we're just focused on Victoria. Definitely want to collaborate with, people like the Bit Kiwi guys and see what they're doing, and different bits and pieces around Australia as well. So,
well, that's interesting, and it's worth mentioning as well, Ian, because you were originally from New Zealand. You spent a long time living in Australia, right?
Kind of spent a lot of time in Wellington, worked there, and went to university there, and moved over to Melbourne, 2008, I think, something like that. Just working. So it's still got a lot of ties there.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, we have caught up a couple of times in Wellington, and I think that Australia and New Zealand relationship is important to foster, and certainly New Zealand, I mean, isn't doing too well right now. Let's be honest about it. But I think there is sort of that connectivity and a lot of crossover between the two countries, and I think similar experiences, in particular with Victoria. I know you guys had really tough lockdowns. There was sort of a spirit de corps in terms of just the zeitgeist of Dan Andrews and that whole, sorry, I don't mean to trigger you, but that whole situation which New Zealand went through as well. And I think that vibe, I would say, is very similar to what we've got in New Zealand. I think New Zealand Bitcoin is a very much that we went through that a very difficult period, and we came out the other side, very much seeing Bitcoin as a solution to this, the role of the state and these kind of bigger ideas, which maybe other places don't. They didn't have that tempering experience that made them hardcore. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. To me, you're right. Yeah, Victoria did get hit very, very hard with the lockdowns. I can't remember. It was a good couple of 100 days we were locked inside our houses. Yeah, in all honesty, I was actually very fortunate during those times personally that kind of had a nice space here that get out and about a bit. And at the time, kids weren't at school age, so they weren't too impacted. So very, very, very fortunate for myself. But it wasn't COVID that got me into Bitcoin at all or anything like that.
Okay.
It was just a kind of a parallel thing. But I have heard so many stories of that time, people waking up to Bitcoin and what was going on. So I can't really comment if it's different in Victoria than other states, because of that or not. Definitely have heard stories of it, but I've kind of heard them from all over as well. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that you've gone through the process of setting up an incorporated association, and I think there's something to be said about that because New Zealand and I guess Australia as well have a long history of associations, clubs, these kinds of things. And I know for myself personally, for a long time I was a member of the New Zealand Deerstalkers Association, which is effectively hunters and that, as an organisation, it was able to negotiate, certain deals and kind of there was an indemnity insurance and a whole lot of benefits you got as being a member, and then also the advocacy work. So dealing with the New Zealand government, pushing back against the Department of Conservation, etc., against 1080 and all of these topics. But in terms of sports clubs, racing clubs, there's a whole history of that, and it's sort of a real community thing. Especially in small town New Zealand, it's sort of like, well, what else are you going to do? You join your local club for rugby, sports, aircraft, whatever it is that you're into. There's clubs and sports and associations for it, and it seems that the way you guys have done this, having this constitution, these principles, that's really cool. It's sort of it's an opt-in kind of a thing, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think there'll be some people in the community who
are against it, maybe. Yeah.
Who are against it because it's a fiat structure, right? And a government-based structure. But one of the reasons why we've done it is that it's about meeting people where they are. If you want to educate someone, if you want to help someone, you've got to meet them where they are. That's where you're going to be successful. And so by having this structure in place, it gives us a little bit, even if it's just a perceived or a perception of legitimacy, right? We're not a bunch of guys and girls coming together who are in some cult. It's we're a formal club. We're recognised under Consumer Affairs. We adhere to the rules. We have a set of rules that guide how we will operate. We've got our purpose that's well documented. We've got our mission and our principles, and that's all publicly available for people to see and see what we do. So what we've been very, very conscious of though is explaining to people that we want to be a bridge between the two worlds. And that's where we kind of see us sitting in that, you've got this fiat world where it's, dark and stormy and, whatever's going to happen with the financial systems is going to happen. And then you've got this bright, sunny, beautiful Bitcoin standard world. And, how do we get people from one side to the other? How do we get people to see the other side? And, that's the bridge there. And so meeting people where they are, we've got this fiat structure, but that's really, the outside of the club to give us that legitimacy. Inside and how we run the club, it's very, very Bitcoin-based, Bitcoin standard. So everything we're doing financially is on a Bitcoin standard, and that means things like always accepting payments in Bitcoin, always charging for pricing things in sats. as well. So the membership is priced in sats for the year. We might adjust that through the year, but that's how we're pricing things. We're working on that Bitcoin standard, and even how we govern the club. It's not about there's a committee there who's going to sit there and say right, this is what the club's going to do. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. All members are equal. All members will have exactly the same say in it. We've got certain people in certain positions officially for the club so that we can get things like bank accounts and lodge the formal documents. But that's not actually how we're running the club. So the president doesn't have any other say than a standard voting member in the club who's paid up. Anyone can submit proposals of what they want to do with club funds. We've come up with an idea of, we call it a VIP or a VIP, a Victorian Bitcoin Technology Club, VBTC improvement proposal, where people can go and put an idea together of how they want to spend club funds. So it's not just about the committee coming together to go, here's the ideas that we want to go out and support. It's actually about members owning the club themselves and going, I'm part of this club. This is what I want to do in my community. This is how I want to help people. This is how I want the club to support me in it. Members can then vote on that and say whether they agree or not. And if you can get the community's buy into it, then the club supports you. The committee are really there just to facilitate it. We've got to have someone there who can actually release funds. We can't give everyone that access, right? But the actual decision around how that's made is not a committee decision; it's a whole of club decision. Really trying to work on Bitcoin standards and making sure everyone is included in the club and doing what they want it to be.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think pulling on that thread a little bit, so I think there is maybe a visceral initial knee-jerk reaction to the idea of, say, formal structures and even things like companies as well. Sort of incorporating a company. It seems like it gets lumped in with the state and some of these bigger questions. But in fact, what we're seeing here is this is sort of a backwards, let's think of it as a backwards compatible governance structure.
Yeah.
And so you guys have this, this affiliate association. You've gone through the process of getting this paperwork, but even if that sort of system was to fall away, you still have the governance structure internally that you're establishing. And so
Correct.
It's backwards compatible in that sense. And I think another benefit is it also has a degree of responsibility because certainly, there's some people out there who are, they're happy to just buy and hold Bitcoin and then go about their daily lives. But then there's also people who are really interested in ushering in this Bitcoin future. Are interested in building on Bitcoin, actually helping accelerate Bitcoin adoption, etc. And those people maybe want to have a structure that they know their efforts are going to be concentrated. There's going to be a force multiplier kind of effect. And I think this is really aimed at that because if you're just hodling and you're on the sidelines, that's a sort of a different mode. But if you're like, look, how do we actually improve Australia? How do we improve New Zealand? Because New Zealand in particular isn't doing so well. Is this a vehicle for helping improve our community and our country? And you kind of need a place where that can happen. And otherwise, it's just a bunch of individuals kind of maybe on slightly different trajectories, right? So I think having Bitcoin principles at the core, being backwards compatible with the state and the legislation and all of that, I mean, that's a powerful place to be, man.
Yeah, it's it's a beautiful thing in the club where we've got very different personalities in there, people with really different interests in what they see Bitcoin is and how they want to go about educating others. And having that club environment, by signing up to it, that you're going to go there and you're going to be in a kind of an open environment where everyone's going to be open and honest with each other. It's not about always agreeing with everyone, but it's about being honest with each other. And we can having this structure in place, we can talk to people on the street, about it and go, hey, look, this is no different to joining a men's shed or to joining your rugby club or to anything. It's just a club where like-minded people are getting together, and talking about things and doing things that they agree with. Um, and and the beauty with Bitcoin is that that can be so many different things now. We've got people in the club who are really strong environmentalists in there. They can talk to their environmentalist friends about this Bitcoin thing being a formal club, rather than just some weirdo nerds in a dark room somewhere, and how it can help the environment. You know, then we've got the tech nerds in the club who are all about the latest and greatest technology and how we're going to get worldwide adoption, with complete privacy and everything in between there, right? Yes, you're right. We've got the people who are just hodlers and want to see number go up, and that's absolutely fine. But I think if people are in Bitcoin just to earn more fiat, then that's a very different thing, right? Yes. And I think what being part of this club is you want more than that, and you want to see a change. You want to see something different, and that change and that difference can mean a lot of different things to different people.
Well, yeah, and also the note on the kind of centralized versus decentralized, which again I think there is a knee-jerk sort of reaction to these sort of things, but when we're talking about centralized power, I think we start at the head, which is the state. And then, and when I refer to the state here, I'm not necessarily like Victoria state, but the government state apparatus. And then there's kind of organizations that are adjunct to that, such as the banking sector, which is effectively the state at a broad level. However, and for me, that's when we're talking about centralization, we're talking about that sort of strata of organizations. But when we're talking about associations, unaffiliated companies, that are built by teams of people, and they're not sort of in the pockets of the government, etc. I mean, these are very different, and these are how humans organize since the beginning of time, right? We have tribes, we have groups, right? And so I think avoiding going too far down the rabbit hole towards atomization, because as an individual, you can be squashed out, and no matter how high you are, if you're blowing the whistle on Boeing or Epstein or whatever, they'll come and get you. It doesn't really matter who you are or how much money you've got as an individual, but it's when it's that society, that kind of group, that you can actually have a network effect, and you meet people. And certainly BitKiwi in New Zealand has been a great example. How many businesses and even this podcast have sort of spawned out from the people I met there, etc. And I think scaling that up, and doing it in a way that has Bitcoin principles at the core. I think that's really the big difference,
Yeah. I also think, like, as I said, like, we have people in named positions within the club to fulfill the requirements of the, association incorporation rules. Internally, that's not how we run the club, though. We don't talk about the president, the secretary, the treasurer, or anything like that. Everyone's equal. So as soon as we're kind of talking inside that club, it's completely decentralized again. So there's not, I suppose in other clubs that might run, yes, you'd have the committee who are making the decisions on where funds are being spent and prioritizations and things like that. That's not the case with us. Everyone's going to, kind of do their own thing. And if they can get community buy-in to things, then that's the direction the club will go. So, yeah, it might appear that it's a centralized entity from the outside, but then as soon as you get on the inside, it's definitely still decentralized, where all of these different locations can be pushing their own thing and doing and getting out of it what they want to.
Well, I mean, again, it's backwards compatible, and the example that comes to mind is something like Bitcoin Core, where really they're not Bitcoin. They maintain the code. They can merge things, and they can be wrong sometimes. They're not the overlords. And if you don't want to use that, there is ways of pushing back or forking off or just staying on an older version of Bitcoin Core, etc. And I think that this is similar, right? You have sort of a public-facing, backwards-compatible legacy structure, and then you have the internal Bitcoin operations. And I think that's the beautiful thing, because that is the API, that's the bridge between fiat and the new world. And in terms of dealing with the state government, dealing with the Australian government, dealing with corporations, other entities, unfortunately, in my experience, it's really hard for an individual to get cut through in those conversations. And at the end of the day, those are participants. They're not Bitcoiners yet, but they will be one day. And so, with this backwards compatible bridge, you can actually engage with these kinds of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose that's another point to make about it as well. We've been very clear on what we're not as a club.
Okay.
We're not lobbyists.
I see. Okay.
We're not actively out there, trying to engage mainstream media to do articles or, kind of anything like that. We've got the Australian Bitcoin industry body who are in that space. They're doing great things. We want to work with them. We want to support them in that. We're much more about the education, the grassroots. I'm not great at talking to politicians. Not something I enjoy doing. I don't enjoy talking to the media. And I don't think other members of the club are at the moment as well. So, we're happy to let other people go off and fight that fight. We're about in-person education and communities, because, doing it from the ground up rather than the top down. We think that, if we can get this groundswell of people starting to take that, the orange pill and understand and start to see actually what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm, kind of being told isn't quite adding up. If we can get that from the ground level, then that could be a really powerful thing.
Oh, okay. No, well, thank you for clarifying that, because I had a while back, I had seen the Australian Bitcoin industry body?
The industry body, yeah.
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 And it's sort of similar to the Bitcoin Policy Institute in the US, and I think there might be one in the UK as well. I sort of look at it and I think, oh, this is hard, because you're sort of in those positions, you're almost hitting head against the wall. And I think in the US they have made some progress. The BPI has certainly made done some good work. But it's I imagine it's quite stressful, and it's kind of like, yeah, man, that's actually a battleground. It's not a comfortable place to be. Whereas I think what you're describing, it's a very friendly, educational, kind of open environment where, you're not having to put on your battle armor to go and talk to the politicians about Bitcoin, which is a very different kind of a thing, right?
Exactly. And it's that, the whole argument of, why even engage with them type thing of, like, it's really hard to try and convince these people when, you firmly believe that they've actually got ulterior motives in there. And, if you come into this with an honest mentality around, kind of, we just want to do good, how does that work in politics, right? Politics is a game, and if you don't want to play games, you actually want to do stuff. How do those two worlds meet? And that could be a really frustrating thing. So say the argument of why even engage is a very strong one as well. But if no one's going to engage, then you're not going to make differences. But someone has to do it.
I think it's also the mode of engagement, because you're talking about grassroots adoption. And it seems like the BPI, just from the work that I've seen, at a distance, they're looking at a much more militant, much more powerful federal government in the US, and so they're really trying to shore up support in the states, the individual states, to get different initiatives over the line to kind of fight back against the US federal government, which is, I think, a very different situation to to New Zealand and Australia, where maybe it's less oppressive right at this point in time, though you still have issues with CBDCs in the fiat side. I think that's a different mode. But on another note, the other thing is, I know certainly a lot of associations and clubs are sitting on a lot of treasuries, and I wonder if maybe there's some learnings that could be applied But you guys are, being on a Bitcoin standard, and you said that you've got bank accounts, which I imagine, allows you to be that, bridge
Well,
towards.
we haven't yet.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've hit the expected challenges with getting a bank account.
Oh, okay.
We have gone through, I think we're on to about our fifth attempt now to get a bank account. And it's literally because we have the word Bitcoin in our name. Some have come back and just gone, no, you're not having an account,
No.
no reason.
Yeah.
Some are saying, sorry, we don't want crypto trading as part of our risk profile. And we go back and say, we're not crypto traders. One, we're Bitcoin, not crypto. But two, we're not trading at all. We're an association about community education. And this is just for people to pay their membership fees. That's it. And you don't get a response. And so we're going through that process again with one or two others to try and get there. But we're also looking at options of, can we operate this without a bank account?
Well, yeah,
Can
tell
we?
me what's the need for a bank account here? Is it for members who don't have Sats at the moment, or?
So that's one of them. Some members just don't want to part with their Sats. If they've got Sats that and they, we encourage, spend and replace. But if they don't want to be doing that, that's fine. Some people, don't have any, and it's just a lot easier for some people as well, I suppose. Still, just to pay in that fiat, which we always really encourage Bitcoin payments. We've got a policy of, all of our funds will be held in Bitcoin. We're not going to hold as little as possible in fiat in our membership funds. But yeah, it's hard hard at the moment to completely operate without it.
I mean, yeah, I'd be interested. I mean, obviously you're a lot closer to it, but I would be interested to know. I mean, maybe this is a sign, if you're having these issues of getting bank accounts, because if there are people who maybe can't get Sats or whatnot, I mean, that's a different use case. But if your expenses and your other things can be negotiated in a way so that they're payable in Sats, which maybe takes a little bit more work, that kind of moves your organization to just be a little bit more in their Bitcoin standard. It simplifies accounting. It simplifies any capital gains or transfers between the two. If that's possible, that could be really exciting, because then you're sort of, it's a one-way street. You are backwards compatible, but you're on a Bitcoin standard fully.
Yeah.
And I don't know, in terms of when you're doing an event or something, I mean, there is ways of, I guess, paying for things in fiat via Bitcoin, even if it's maybe a little bit more convoluted. But yeah, I'd be interested to see how that turns out for you guys.
Yeah, the real challenge we've had at the moment is people wanting to spend their fiat and keep their Sats. So we've had to, kind of accept fiat payments. Actually paying people out, I think everyone that we are going to deal with will be happy to take Bitcoin in payment. Really, there'll be a few exceptions, but even in that case, yeah, it's easy to get someone who will pay the fiat bill for us and give them some BTC for it. So, I don't see that going out being a challenge at all.
Okay, well, in that case, I mean, again, maybe it's just a bit of internal advocacy, because if I believe, what is it? You've got your annual membership, right? And
yeah,
if people, if people can join in and pay, pay that, which I think is a very reasonable request. Pay it in Sats. You can pay it over Lightning, you can pay it on chain. Then if your outgoings can all be done in Bitcoin, and you can select for businesses and venues, etc., that accept Bitcoin, I mean, that's a very clean process, and maybe that's something the members just need to basically. I mean, maybe it's just sort of like, look, this is the way we're going to do it. So, I mean, obviously you've got a negotiation process, finding consensus within the organization, but yeah, I'll be excited to see how that turns out.
Yeah, look, it's once again, if you go back to the meet them where they are principle as well, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place there, in terms of, on one hand, yeah, it'd be great to be able to turn around and go, if you want to be a member of the club, you pay in Sats. But on the other hand, if we're trying to bring no coiners into the club to help educate them.
I see.
Yeah, it's kind of they've got to have that first step first, right? I'm sure there's some things we can do to help handhold there and make that easy. But there'll also be people who are out there who are very, very conscious about, kind of taking money out of an exchange, or sorry, taking money out of an account, buying Bitcoin on an exchange, so that then they get flagged with their bank about, kind of being a crypto trader.
Mm.
So they'll not want to do that as well. So yeah, it's a challenging one, and it's one of the challenges we're going to have to work through. But yeah, the majority of people at the moment are paying for things in Sats, which is great. But yeah, it's probably about 25% at the moment is in fiat. So yeah, it's not a huge issue for us.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, well, I do look forward to seeing how that unfolds because
Mm.
certainly as you guys have gone to the effort of building this organization and going through this process and maybe it's something that other places can learn from. It's a slightly different structure to say a meetup event or
Yep.
a conference. There's sort of some buy-in and some commitment, and it's sort of you're building this community, and this really sort of echoes sort of an individual kind of thesis around small communities. You guys happen to be geolocated in the same area, but this concept can apply to more distributed communities. But it's basically a non-state alignment.
Yep.
You've got a group of people working on this new thing, educating, sharing, and there's a whole lot of stuff that can emerge from that. Whether it's building new companies, people who are trying to find, communities where they're interested in homeschooling, they're interested in, different kinds of things. And as you say, you've got lots of different people meeting at this place, at this concept of the Victorian Bitcoin Technology Club. So you can kind of, it's kind of rebuilding, remediating community.
Yeah, so part of this as well came out of an idea to get a physical Bitcoin space in Melbourne.
Oh, yes.
And it was really, I think where I got caught up on it was where do we put it physically? Because we're so spread out around Victoria, it's hard to get a single location that is going to work for everyone. So, the plan was, well, yeah, let's do something virtual to start with. Let's build up a good membership base. Once we can get the membership numbers up there, at that stage, that's when we can maybe start to look at a physical space somewhere, and then get actually people kind of meeting in person at a space a lot more regularly.
Yeah, well, the other thing is if you've got membership paid in Sats, and if your organization is able to hodl Sats, it gives you the ability to, it's kind of like a force multiplier. And so maybe one person, has a limit to what they can do, but if you guys have that treasury and there's reporting on that and there's sort of processes, and Bitcoin kind of has this already built in. You've got things like multi-sig and other technology. Having, the war chest and personally, Bitcoiners have their own personal war chest, but having it as this organization, it means maybe you're not ready to buy or lease a space at the moment, but in 4 years, those sats you're getting for membership are just going to go so far that you can have that lower time preference and build the venue, build the citadel, so to speak, which is really cool.
Yeah, completely. Look, that is an idea that has been raised. One of the proposals that hasn't been formalized yet is I think we said kind of 10% of every membership, we just hodl. And yeah, kind of over the next few years, let's see where that goes, right? And yeah, if it turns into enough to get a place, then yeah, okay, well, what's the value trade-off then, right? Where do we go with it? So,
Yeah, that's really exciting. I hope you don't mind talking about this, but it does remind me a lot of the Freemasons. And
yep.
there's a certain
Yeah, right.
and maybe people are not really educated on what that movement was, but it is actually a very interesting historical movement. And even to this day, you go, most towns and cities in New Zealand have a lodge, and
Yeah.
it was this gathering place. It was a very collegiate, meeting of minds and discourse, and it really played an important role. Is that something you've thought about at all?
I haven't actually, no. It's something I will go away and kind of think about now and just go, it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and I mean,
mean,
look,
I suppose like the Freemasons, one of the things that is another kind of principle of ours is that we have decided that we won't be taking sponsorship from anyone. One-off events we might do a little bit different. Donations are fine, but yeah, we won't be sponsored by anyone. So we don't want anyone kind of sponsoring us and putting their badge on our website, right? Like, we don't want to. We want to avoid any type of risk capture there. So yeah, we much prefer to stay independent and do what we're doing rather than potentially open ourselves up in that way through sponsorship, which is very similar to what the Freemasons do, right? That you never had the Freemasons sponsored by anyone, right? So yeah.
yeah, I think there's a history there that it's worth exploring. In fact, I'm probably going to have to go and read a book on it now as well. But certainly from my apocryphal knowledge, the Freemasons, it was an oppressed, it was they were building stone buildings, right? And so there was certainly a degree of oppression around that labor and sort of a protectionism that they sort of sought out. But it's a proof of work, right? They were the
Yeah.
ones building these cathedrals, these citadels, effectively, with a certain kind of magical knowledge of the trigonometry and the structural engineering, which I mean, it does sort of map onto Bitcoin in a sense. And I think the group has been, I think there's a kind of popular take on what it means, but certainly it's a very positive collegiate thing, and it's a community that existed despite the mainstream, and so you could be a Mason and you knew someone and you could kind of
Yeah.
strike a deal, and there's these communities, and they did a lot of similar to, say, mutual societies. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but sort of before you had the nanny state, you had these mutual societies, and I think you would see, instead of insurance, like buying an insurance policy, you would be a member of the society, and if you got sick, the society would pay for you, and it would help, and kind of it would gather around the individual. And I believe it's the same historically with the Masons. They would sort of help out their fellow Masons to to build things and make things happen. So yeah, strictly, I mean, not to draw the connection too much with what you guys are doing, but I think there is a role for these kind of community non-state support structures, because even you talk about education, it's like, man, all the education through the state-sponsored schools is like, that's very separate to education done through an opt-in voluntary organization, right? It's sort of a different beast.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. But there's definitely parallels there. In the club, there's definitely a spirit in there of wanting to help each other out as well. Not just on education, but just on anything. Everyone is considered friends, and kind of happy to help people out on any aspect of anything they're doing. Right. Kind of. There's definitely that community spirit to it.
Well, I think that's what stands out to me as being really positive here, because in the clown world, in the normie world, as things start heating up culturally as well, it only takes a inflation, cost of living, food prices to go up for social morale to go down, and you start looking at the streets of Melbourne or Auckland or whatnot, and you're starting to see that coming through. You've got people blazingly stealing things from supermarkets. You've got petty crime. You've got these sort of the edges of society are starting to fall away, and that's a direct result of the state's mismanagement of the monetary system. And I think building a sort of a bastion, a safe, I don't want to use the word safe space, but, it really is, a friendly collegiate place where people can build, they can share ideas, they can be optimistic for the future. I mean, that's pretty powerful, man, in this dark, stormy world, as you say, of the fiat system.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's, some memes in there around Bitcoiners sharing toilet paper rather than fighting over it and stuff, right?
Recycled toilet paper, no. But I mean, it's building, it's being proactive, and it's certainly the education, sharing knowledge about how to get out of this predicament. Because I mean, when it comes time to picking up the brick to smash the window, we've almost let it get too far at that point. But if it's teaching someone how to run a node and how to self-custody their wealth, that's a very different reaction. It's a different reflex. And I think in a way, the battle that we face as Bitcoiners potentially is that as the fiat system unwinds and, people start thinking, what's even happening when I'm paying, $50 for a burger or something. I think we're going to start seeing that violence emerge. And then when they see this class of people who have been hodling since whenever, and they think, oh, but those guys have gotten so wealthy, are they not the enemies? And I think you might start to see that cultural battle draw out. And it has been said before that perhaps Bitcoiners get blamed for inflation as Bitcoin moons and inflation moons at the same time, but they don't understand it's actually the other way around. And so having structures and societies for actually kind of legitimizing it in the public's consciousness, it's not just sort of this unknown kind of specter of the Bitcoiners who are amongst us. We don't know who they are. And it's like, well, actually, there's just a bunch of nice guys and girls just working on this technology. You can come and visit, and check it out. I mean, that's just a very different approach.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps that, the incentives are aligned, right? The more people that know about it, the more people that understand about it, the better it becomes as well. So that does help for a welcoming community as well. But it's, when you talk about, kind of Bitcoiners being blamed for things, I think it's, this attitude of to get ahead, I've got to push someone down, whereas that's not the case in the Bitcoin community. You can get ahead by helping others. You look at how many people in the community have a good reputation because they own so much Bitcoin. There's not many of them, right? It's people get ahead in the Bitcoin community by helping others and educating others and being knowledgeable and then sharing that knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's how people get ahead here.
Yeah, it's sort of value for value. And there's almost a token associated with Bitcoin, and it's called respect, in the sense that it's within a group, a local community. It doesn't matter what your hodl is. If you've got respect, you've got the trust of those around you. That's actually almost the more valuable asset, to have. Because if you're untrusted, if you're atomized, because you can hold Bitcoin and just be doing your own thing, but if you're in this community, you're part of the solution.
Yeah,
it's very different, and a lot of opportunities can come out of that. It's a very valuable thing to have.
Yeah, but I mean, and the respect goes hand in hand with the proof of work for me. Even if someone does just hodl Bitcoin, right? If you hodl Bitcoin for 4, 8, 12 years, that's not an easy thing to do, right? Like there's still a lot of challenges in just hodling. Like we say, just hodl. That's not easy. Like there's a lot of pressures out there to try and get you to part with your Bitcoin. So even that, there's proof of work in just hodling for me.
Yeah, interesting. I guess sort of looking to wrap it up, Ian, but like what do you think the future looks like for the club? What's on your guys' sort of horizon for the next few years?
Yeah, so we've launched, we've kind of rolled things out to the members to hand over from the state of having a committee to membership led. So we're starting to get some proposals coming in around what people want to do for the club. The first one is around going away for a weekend up into a remote location and on a campsite there and getting together for a weekend, Bitcoiners, and kind of running some workshops and kind of just hanging out and educating Bitcoiners, talking about things. So looking at events like that. Also looking at running workshops for people. So one of the ones that we've had a lot of interest in is a node building workshop, where people can bring along an old laptop, some hardware, or come to and say, I want to come along. What hardware do I need to buy? And then we can all get together one day and step through setting up a Bitcoin node. So that'd go from what is a Bitcoin node? What is this thing going to do? How's it going to run? Kind of what are we doing here? Through to actually then getting people hands-on and then installing a version of either Bitcoin Core or NOTs or something there to kind of start syncing the blockchain and what do they then want to use it for? So there's that. Really interested in doing kind of some community meetups as well. I'm planning on submitting a proposal with Kieran to do a public information evening down here in Mornington around, educating people on what Bitcoin is, and for merchants how to accept Bitcoin, and trying to get people together there. Yeah, and then some other fun things. Just very social in the club. Say more of those weekends away, or just kind of evenings out for dinner, anything like that. And then kind of supporting, as I say, supporting different events around the state as well. So we don't just want it to be down this side. Looking to do a whole load of things like that and grow the club, really. Grow it and just make it bigger and bigger and more successful, and get that education and get that word out there, really.
That's cool. And I love the idea of the open night kind of public focused events, because that's where you get more people who are maybe really interested, but they don't really know where to go. And to be honest, it can be daunting if you're just like on YouTube or the internet trying to find info about Bitcoin. But if you can go and talk to some real people, and they can demo and they can get you set up real quick, and you could just cut through the crypto stuff, you can cut through the FUD. You just say, look, this is this is how it works, and you can really, I think that makes up for trying to do stuff on the internet, by yourself, which can be a bit of a difficult path to navigate,
Yeah, I mean, everyone learns in different ways, right? This is one of the things that we know. There's so much good information online, but also it's so easy to be led down, some dark, dreary path as well. You go and start watching Bitcoin videos on YouTube, and how quickly you're going to get, led down a, altcoin path. Of the next best great Bitcoin. But when you're in person, that face-to-face meeting so you can cut through all of that stuff really quickly. It's much more trustworthy, and I think it's a lot more effective doing it in person. And we see there's kind of two avenues to that at the moment. We're seeing a lot of interest from public in terms of buying, holding what is Bitcoin, and then obviously there's the education around the money side of it as well. Why do I want this thing? But then also merchants and what it can do for merchants in terms of how they accept it, what it means for them to accept it, and stuff like that. So we'll try and tackle kind of both fronts in the one evening. Start off all together, talk all about why, what it is, and then split off to individuals who want to hold and talk about buying and owning Bitcoin, and others who want to talk about on the business side of it. So oh,
that's awesome. And so for the Victorian Bitcoin Technology Club, if people want to find that online, where can they go, Ian?
So the website of vbtc.org.au. And that's the website there. There's a link to the membership page, which will tell you everything about signing up to be a member. They can also contact me, Ian at vbtc.org.au on email. Or if you just want to sign up to be a member, email info@vbtc.org.au, and we'll get you set up. One of the perks of being a member is you do get a personalized challenge coin, which is pretty cool. So it's one of the gold Bitcoin coins with the Bitcoin logo on one side and VBTC logo on the other, and everyone's got a unique membership number on there. They're pretty cool. People have liked receiving those. So that's
that
a
sounds
nice
really
little
cool.
touch.
No, well, man, look, all the best with the club. It sounds really exciting, and I look forward to seeing what comes out. But I do appreciate your time, Ian. Thank you.
No, thanks for having us, and keep on doing what you're doing, Cody. It's a great listen. Always interested to see you have on, and hopefully we'll catch up in person again soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening. I do hope you enjoyed the show. I am Cody Allingham, and that was the Transformation of Value. If you would like to get in touch, please send me an email at hello@thetransformationofvalue.com, and I will get back to you.